Listen, we are just so excited. We wanted to take some time to just share with you a little bit about Women with Grit. What is the story behind it? How do we get started with it? You know, I've got partner in crime here, Lee Willette.
Hey, what's going on?
And I'm Sherelle Lands, and we're just so excited about this concept called Women with Grit, where we interview just exceptional women within the community and around the world who are doing phenomenal things. So how do we get started with this concept, Lee?
Well, I think ultimately it was a reaction to COVID. We were literally working on a different concept that involved women and really helping women have the opportunities to progress in their careers, and we're really putting something together to do that. And we had all these people lined up to interview and to get information from, and COVID happened. And so
that changed life for everyone.
It did, and so for us, we were talking one day, and so we were talking about what we're doing, and I said, I'm thinking about doing this podcast, and I'm thinking about doing this, and you said, okay, let's do it. And so Women with Grit came.
There it is. Big on execution, we make it happen.
Yes, so it's been exciting.
Yes, it has. We've had just phenomenal guests even over the last year, and looking forward to all that's coming ahead. So how can they reach us?
They can reach us on YouTube, Exceptional Women with Grit. You can subscribe to our page. You can check out our Facebook page, Women with Grit, or you can go to our website, womenwithgrit.com.
That's it.
And the best way to catch us is Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Central Time, when Sherelle and I are live with our guests. And literally, I think the most exciting thing for me is what we talked about. We wanted to have a program that addressed that brought in women from around the world. So that's our globe here. We literally interview people in Bogota, Colombia, over in London, and then all over the United States as well. So that's been exciting. That's one of the benefits of COVID. Everybody's used to this virtual world, and nobody feels like they have to fly in to be live in the studio.
That's right. So hopefully you will join us live or catch the replay, right?
The replays, that's right. We have a bunch of replays, and I mean, if I were you, I would binge listen. People binge watch on Netflix, binge listen and watch Women with Grit. There have been some phenomenal interviews and some phenomenal tips that will help anyone. We have men and women that watch.
That's right.
And I think the tips that you get, the things that you learn from these women that are our guests will help anyone advance their careers, advance their lives, and just really live a full life and a happy life. And I think that's exciting.
Yes, I would agree 100%. So if you're interested, definitely join us, follow us, engage with us, like us, share it, all of those things. And if you know a phenomenal woman or a woman with grit that you would recommend being on the show, be sure that you write us on any one of those forums, and a member of our team will get back to you.
Yeah. And don't forget, if you have a product or service, a company that you want to promote or a cause, give us a shout. We're happy to do that. There is a cost. But it's not much, not yet. So you better get in while it's cheap.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you. And so far, we'll see you online.
Talk to you later. Peace.
Bye. Well, good evening, everyone. Guess what time of year it is? It's time for Women with Grit. That's right. We are back. We are so excited to be back after the summer. We are so excited with everything that has been going on, transpiring. Another amazing season with fantastic guests. That's right. You all asked for it. So we are bringing you another stage and dais of amazing women who are doing inspiring things around the world. That's right. Women with Grit, and we are here. And as you can see, I'm spinning in the big chair alone this evening, but guess what? We are going to still have an amazing time and have fun. Lee will not be with us tonight, but he will join us next week as well. But we are just so excited that you all are taking the time to come and check in with Women with Grit. You know, this is one of those shows where we talk about really celebrating women who are doing phenomenal things. So tonight is no shortage of that. So we invite you to go ahead and grab a friend, tell them we are on. We know that you guys love to engage with us. We know that you all love the women that we bring forward. And we want to hear from you as well. So we have another amazing guest this evening. You guys will get to meet Connie Peltier in just a minute here. But before we do, you know how we do. Go ahead and drop your name, city, state, and that you are joining in from so that we can go ahead and say hey to you. Put your name, city, state that you are joining in from. Feel free to leave us a chat, a like, a follow. Make sure you subscribe to us on one of our channels. As you know, we are featured here on Facebook, but you can also find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on YouTube, our website, www.womenwithgrit.com. And then you can also find us on, let me see, which forum am I forgetting? I think that's it, right? The 4 forums that we have. We're so excited to be here and be back, bringing you women who are doing inspiring things around the world. So be sure to go ahead and do that. Grab your favorite beverage of choice and come on in the room. As you all know how we like to do, we want to make sure that we give props where props is due. So we want to make sure we take a moment to thank the tableaction.org, right? The Table Action is doing some amazing work in Nashville when it comes to racial reconciliation. Not only that, but being a voice in a space where people of color can go and gain these amazing opportunities. So we thank you for your sponsorship. Then, of course, you know, we have Vision Strategy Management, where we believe in building teams and businesses who succeed in the long term. We also want to thank Day Business Services, where you can go to get all of your business needs done. That's right. This is that time. We are in a space where at the back half of the year, if you're a business owner, even if you're in corporate, this is the time that we start planning and planting the seeds for the next and upcoming year. So you don't want to be caught off guard without being or having a plan in place. So go ahead and do that. Be sure to grab that while you are able to do so. And go ahead and come on in the room. So we're so excited to have you all here. We're doing some amazing things, guys. When I tell you the amount of fun things that we have coming up for you, some of them, you know, we have to keep our lips buttoned on, but just know that you are tuned in at the right time with the right team to learn about these amazing and inspiring women. So if you haven't done so already, follow us on Facebook and engage with us on any one of these platforms so that you can be in the loop. And in fact, go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter so that not only are you informed of the shows, but you're kept in the loop of all of the other amazing and inspiring things that we are doing in the community. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and bring on our guests. Let me tell you, Connie Peltier, you guys are in for an amazing treat. You know, I definitely work with Connie in a different forum, but she is such an inspiring woman. When I tell you the amount of stuff that Connie has done in her life and what she's been able to accomplish, you guys are in for a treat. When I tell you an executive in the IT space and how challenging it can be, especially, you know, for me being a woman in STEM, I just simply celebrate women who go into these spaces and are able to continue to thrive in spite of any challenges that they may face along the way. So I want to make sure that you guys get an opportunity to meet this inspiring woman by the name of Connie Peltier. So I'm going to bring up Connie, okay? All right. Hey, Connie, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. You know what? Let me say it correctly. Dr. Peltier, because I want to make sure that I give credit where credit is due. And so thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening.
And thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to spending this time with you.
Fantastic. So, Connie, we're so excited. Should I call you Connie or Dr. Peltier? I want to make
You
sure.
can call me Connie.
Okay. Now, what I want to make sure we start to set the stage off right? We all have these amazing and unique stories. Tell us your unique story of grit.
I'll do it in 2 parts. I started in humble beginnings, but it was instilled in me by my father to not let my circumstances determine my destiny.
Love that.
And education, he pushed it really hard. And he said that was the only thing that no one could take away from you. So get educated, be smart, apply everything that you learn to your life, whether or not it's biblical, it's from the streets, or you're getting it from, a college or a university. Apply those things to your life so that they can benefit you. And I've stuck to that. throughout my life. And then I had another, um, I guess 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, late stage 3.
Wow.
The tumor was the size of a baseball. The
Mm,
doctors didn't know how to treat it because it was growing outside of my breast. And they just didn't know what to do. They couldn't tell me if I was going to make it or not. So I started making a bucket list of all the things that I did not accomplish,
mhm.
before being diagnosed. And I was like, okay, I had a couple of degrees, but there were other things I wanted to do. I wanted to go to law school, but I didn't want to get a law degree. So I just recently graduated with a master's in cybersecurity, along with also at the same time receiving my doctorate in theology.
Wow. Both at
And
the
the
same.
doctorate was probably almost a 17-year process because I started in 2005 and I chickened out.
Okay.
Okay, so, and I want to tell people, so I put that back on my bucket list. I'm going to finish my doctorate. I'm going to join a sorority. I'm going to start traveling, doing all these things because you only live once.
Right.
And I knew that I was going to, even though I gave back before, it meant so much more now being able to give back. So we started a family foundation, giving back to youth, providing educational tools and things like that. So I will say that having breast cancer
Mm-hmm.
and surviving that, and not knowing if I was going to make it or not. The only thing that I asked God for, I got diagnosed in January. I said, God, my son was getting ready to graduate high school. I said, God, just let me live long enough for me to see my son walk across the stage.
Wow.
That's the only thing I asked him for. And he turned my life around and let me know, no, I'm going to do more, with your life, but you're going to have to be ready to accept that and, be ready to move. And when I tell you he has turned my life around, I have been so blessed, um, by that professionally, personally, financially, because I was willing to listen.
Mm,
I was willing to listen. And my biggest passion is giving back to
mhm.
women, to children, to make sure that they clearly understand your circumstances don't determine your destiny. And that circled back around when I had breast cancer. I thought about my father, who was deceased at the time I was diagnosed,
Yeah.
and it came back into, that came back, to what he said. Where you are right now, don't let that determine your destiny. So I knew I had to fight. And I
Right.
knew that I said, God, let me live and I will do more for you. And that's exactly, what I'm doing now. Not only career wise, um, professionally, but personally and mentoring. I'm big on mentoring, to women and to kids.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Wow. That is powerful, Connie. My goodness. And how important when you talk about, and I want to go back to the space of diagnosis before
Hmm.
we move forward. How important is it for women to get checked? Can you speak to that just a little bit?
Yes. And here's the thing: what most women don't know, I carried my cell phone in my chest for 10 years.
Oh wow.
When my boys were little, playing sports and doing everything. And I would carry my phone, money, whatever. You would even ask me if I had my voting card, I would probably have it in my chest.
Yeah.
I just carried all that instead of carrying a purse because I was always, somewhere from the Saturday mornings, from 7 o'clock probably till 11, 12 o'clock at night, running with two boys in two different directions, trying to
Hmm.
make sure they stayed active and, and didn't get in trouble or anything. So I carried, and that's when I see a woman carry her phone in her chest, I'll stop her and say, ma'am, please remove your phone. I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I am still under research right now. I've
Hmm.
donated my DNA as well as I've done two different types of research because the type of cancer and the growth that I had was very unusual.
Okay.
And it all related back to me carrying that phone on the side of my chest for 10 years.
Mm. Wow.
And
Wow.
so I think women need to know that electronics are not meant to be carried in your chest or near your heart or your breast, any of that.
Wow, that's really, really important. I had no idea, and I think a lot of us perhaps don't have any idea about it. It's definitely something I want to research more, especially hearing your story as
Mhm.
well. Um,
70% of Black women get diagnosed in the later stages.
70,
70.
70%.
Two reasons: the
Mhm,
lack of finances,
mhm,
not having health, well, I should say not having health care. And I should add a third one, because our breasts have a lot of fiber and cyst
mhm,
in
mhm.
there, and the density's thick. We don't recognize those lumps until later on. So 70% of Black women um, find out and later on. And
Mm,
then, the doctors don't always listen to what they're talking about.
yeah.
So for me, I would always tell you, find a doctor that really cares and listens to you as a woman, especially as a Black woman,
Mm, that's
because
important.
our health isn't always taken seriously.
Mm, thank you for that. How important, because it sounds as if faith has been an important part of your journey. It's been an important part of you being able to, continue and push through even the diagnosis and your degrees. Tell us a little bit more about the role that faith has played in your life.
I think because of the fact that everything that I reflect back on, it was the impossible. I was a girl who grew up with meager beginnings, lived in a mobile home.
Hmm.
Um, People didn't see me as someone that they can invest in, even as a child, because when you're poor, people don't want to invest in you.
Yeah.
But I will say that once I went to high school, a predominantly white high school, and I wanted to cheer, and my parents couldn't afford it. It was someone unknown who paid for me to cheer for 3 years. I still to this day do not know who they were. They believed enough in me to be the only Black cheerleader at that time of varsity. Um, and they paid like 2 to 3 grand a year. And this was back in the 80s. That's a lot of money, back
Hmm.
then. But that's where it started at. It's like somebody believes in me.
Yeah.
They believe in my dreams.
Hmm.
So that started me on my journey, that I don't have to know these people in order for someone to believe in me. It doesn't have to come from your blood. It doesn't have to come from your friends.
Hmm.
If just one person believes in you, you can make it.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
I think that it's so important to have, especially as we talk about children and the aspect of mentoring our youth and mentoring children as they're coming up, because it's that belief and the ability to instill that in a child that oftentimes helps them, kind of navigate life and even keep the faith as they're growing and going through tough times. So thank you for that. Another thing that you said, which was really interesting, and I wanted to make sure that I
Hmm.
paused on, was the fact that you said it took you 17 years to complete your doctorate degree, which I think is hats off. And then the fact that you did not quit, but you decided that it was something you wanted to do, and it was important for you to do so. Can you speak to, just that process for you, especially as it relates to some people who have perhaps started and maybe stopped, or
Yeah,
are in this process of thinking, that it's never that it might be too late to get a degree.
it's never too late. And the funny part about it is, it actually took me 19 years to earn my bachelor's.
Wow, awesome.
Because of the fact that when I got divorced, I wanted to prove to my children that it was possible, that you can do these things. You know, was in school, fell in love, quit, and then got divorced. And it's like, hey, let's make this happen. I've got to make a legacy happen for my children. I've got
Hmm.
to see them see their, when I say that, I want them to see their mother make it despite all the obstacles.
Hmm.
And they were able to do that. And when I started with my doctorate, it was just piling on. I was trying to work. I was still a single mom.
Yeah.
uh, my oldest son was getting ready to go to high school, and he was a freshman. It's like, do I choose
Hmm.
to continue the doctorate, or focus on my children when they needed me, the most?
Right.
And the mom hat won. And I was like, okay, let's get this done. So I had one that graduated in 2008, and the other one graduated in 2014. So I was like, can't do this. I went ahead and achieved another master's that was easy for me to do. but that nagged on me that I didn't complete something. And I was raised, it's whatever you start, you finish.
Mm-hmm.
So when I found out that I was so close to just dissertation, and that all I had to do was to finish my dissertation in order to earn the theology degree. I
Yeah.
was like, okay, it was 120 some pages. Let's get it done. And that's what I decided to do. And when I received my diploma, I went to my dad's gravesite,
Mm-hmm.
and even though I know my father's in heaven, I wanted to go over to his gravesite and say, Daddy, I started it and now I finished it. Here it is. And I took that picture of my doctorate robe, my cap, my diploma, my dissertation, all at his gravesite. And he was the first one I wanted to know that I did it. I completed it.
Awesome. Mm.
And I share that with people. It's never too late. Even if somebody's going on, a lot of times that may have been the most important person in your life who's instilled all these values, within you. Even though they're gone, you can still accomplish it. Don't let anything stand in your way. If there's always a door that can open where you can actually succeed. And I will tell any woman, regardless of it looks impossible, it is possible. Everything I will say is possible with God. When man say it's not possible, God makes a way
Mm-hmm.
out of no way. And I was able to, to accomplish those goals when I had self doubt.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time where I didn't want to continue my education. I gave up. I was telling myself I wasn't good enough,
Yeah. Mm.
you know, and I
Mm-hmm.
realized that was the child in me.
Mm. Say more about that.
Well, I always felt as the middle child,
Uh-huh.
even though my parents loved me, but I always felt as a middle child that I wasn't good enough.
Okay.
And it had to do, to do with that, it had to do with colorism in my family as well.
Okay.
I was looked at, okay, she's just cute. Let her, as a child, she's just cute, just let her sit down. And then even, in high school and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
nobody, people didn't take me seriously.
Yeah.
And then, she's just a light skinned girl. She'll be all right. She can pass. But for me, it's like, no, I've got to prove myself.
Yeah.
It wasn't about, color for me. It's like, I am who I am. Let me prove who I am. Let me speak for myself. And, some arenas, people, they felt like, oh, she's just a dumb girl there. What?
Mm.
Why? Because of the color of my skin.
That's
And
it.
and this is basically because I ran. This were my relatives that were doing this. My mom had 16 brothers and sisters. There were
Right.
7 on my dad's side. So when my families got together, there were 100 plus people.
Wow. It's a big
And,
family.
yeah, big families on both sides. So, but there was always self doubt, for me, the negativity. But then I began to understand as an adult
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of that negativity was passed down since slavery.
Mm. Okay.
We were made to go against each other, even though one was dark, one was light,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
constantly. And once I came to that realization,
Mm-hmm.
within, about that, is
Mm-hmm.
that was so deeply instilled in us. And then when I started bringing that up when I was around my other relatives, it's like, let's not do this.
Yeah.
That's what people want, want us to feel that way, with colorism. So that's why I said as a child, I always sat back and I didn't want to be I didn't want to be pretty. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to have long hair.
Mm-hmm.
I actually grew up as a tomboy because I didn't want to be that pretty girl.
Mm. Yeah.
I would beat up all the boys in the neighborhood. I would be the one that, the principal would call and say, Mr. Jones, Connie just beat up a little boy on the playground,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be like everybody else and to prove that I was tough.
Yeah.
And don't look at me this way, look at me another way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say as a child, with all the self doubt
Yeah.
about who I am.
So how
And
would you? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, but my father used to always say, as a teenager, your looks can get a man, but can you keep him?
You
And I was
keep.
like, Daddy, what do you mean? He said, Baby, you got to have some substance,
Yeah, yeah.
you
Substance.
know, and you got to have some substance. And, we would read newspaper articles. He was always bringing, making sure we had books to read. And
Mm-hmm.
then after we finished the book, he'd say, Tell me about that. And, because he would always say, My children are not going to be dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
and
think,
he's like, you got to have some substance. And he would always say, you got to have some substance. Well, he said,
right.
once you get old and that shape changes, you know,
Like,
and you're not. And he said, and you start getting those wrinkles. What are you going to have?
mm-hmm.
That, and he instilled that in me as at 12, 13 years old. That I've got to have something else.
And I think that it's so important to have that, the to instill the fact that there is, there's more, especially beyond looks and things of that nature.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you, how did you overcome those self-limiting beliefs? How did you overcome that self-doubt for yourself?
Usually, I'll be honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
I dug the hole for myself, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that with the self doubt. And my father used to always say, Connie, you gotta quit digging. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He said, you're your worst enemy. You keep digging that hole for yourself, and you're going deeper and deeper. And there will be circumstances. It's like, wow, I got to get myself together.
Yeah.
When I wanted to decided, hey, I want to pursue my degrees. And I was like, okay. I kept doubting myself and putting it off and putting it off. And then, here I am going through a divorce, looking at my kids and realize how long I've self-doubted myself. And it's like, oh no, you got to get this together. You've got a legacy behind you. You've got to prove to these kids that it's not impossible, that you can get it done. They can have a better life.
Mm-hmm. So,
And that mom's provided this. And then as the next generation, I've got to do better than my mom, because that's what my father instilled in me. What he would always say, what I've done is okay, but you've got to step up and do better. And then when your kids come along, they've got to do better than you. And I didn't understand that till I had my kids, and
mm,
then going through a divorce.
yeah.
And I
Right.
was like, oh no, we got to make this happen.
That's right.
You got to make it happen. And that's one thing I can tell you about a black woman that I have learned,
Mm-hmm.
even with my grandmother. Hey, you take a little of something and you make something out of it.
Yeah, that's right. No
It may
matter
not
what it
take
is.
much, because my grandmother used to take that, make that hot water cornbread,
Mm-hmm.
with a little meal. I was like, "Think you don't have about a little pinch of meal?" She said, "Baby, we're gonna eat good tonight."
Yeah.
You
Make a
know,
lot
the
from
black
a
eyed
little.
peas, that cornbread.
Yeah.
You may have meat, you may not have meat, but boy, when she finished that little meal, it was good. And so I reflect back in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
how my past, how they made a lot out of little.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been able to trace my history all the way back to 1612, where the boat actually came and landed. The Plymouth actually came here, so I've been able to trace my ancestry all the way back, and then also back to Africa.
That's awesome. And I
So,
love that you said make a lot from a little. So it
mhm,
doesn't really matter you're starting or what you start with, it's the ability to multiply and the ability to take what you have and then cause it to be fruitful. I love
mhm,
that you said that. Connie, what or who inspires you? When you think about your journey, when you think about just the different things that you have been able to successfully overcome, whether it was the breast cancer, the 16 years to get your degree,
mhm,
divorce, which is, another heart, a heart tug, if you will.
mhm.
What or who has been able to inspire you along the way?
I will say my grandmother. She was married at 12.
Okay.
She had to be married off because she was biracial.
Okay. Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
and she had a first child at 13, her last one at 41.
Okay.
And for me, just the fact that she was able, and plus when she married my grandfather, he already had two kids. So at 12, she was raising two, and then at 13, she had her own child. So within less than a year, within a year, she was raising three kids at the age of 13. And
Wow.
so all she knew
Mm-hmm.
was to live off the land,
Yeah.
make the best out of what she had. And
Mm-hmm.
she taught me so much. And she never, I don't care what my uncles and aunts did wrong, she would never make a difference in any of her kids, because she says, I have to love them regardless. If nobody else loves them, I'm going to love them.
Yeah.
And she always instilled in me. And then when she would bake her cakes, she would always say, I'm just stirring up a little bit of love. And I was like, what do you mean, grandmama? She said, baby, she said, when I finish this cake, she said, you're going to love me and you're going to love this cake.
Love that.
And we would sit there and watch her make things from scratch, all the time. But of course, she knew how to do that because that's all they had.
Mm-hmm.
Take what they had. She would go through, those cut. She would call them those cut boards, is what she called them. She would go through and start pulling stuff out. And I said, Grandma, I thought you said you hadn't gone to the grocery store. She said, baby, we don't need the store.
Mm. You
And
went
then,
out back.
yeah. And then she said, what we got here, she said, I can take again, make a little and make it a lot. And she would always have these fabulous meals. And I'd look around and like, where's this stuff coming from? Because
Mm.
she wasn't going to the grocery store like we go once a week and all of that. She made it happen.
That's right.
And that taught me that, about that. She was really big. And then, my grandfather on my father's side was a sharecropper, and they never really had anything. So
Mm.
my father let me know that it doesn't matter where you come from.
Mm-hmm.
As
Only matter.
long as you know where you came from,
Mm-hmm.
and so then you'll know where you're going.
Mm.
And it took me a while to learn that. I don't think I really got the gist of that till I was in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
But see, in other words, you need to know your past. You need to know your family's past, so
Mm-hmm.
you don't make the same mistakes. So you can apply those lessons that have been learned, by them, to your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back and I look at some things, and I've actually been able to go back to the land that my dad's family was enslaved on, because they bought it back.
Yeah.
So that lesson in itself, that how could they, five of them, get together, just got free, from slavery, and go back and buy all this land.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that let me know that, again, with a little, they bought a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That
So
seems to be definitely a common theme throughout you, not only your legacy, but the legacy from whence you have come.
mhm.
Whence you
So
came from.
I've learned that it doesn't matter where you start. Doesn't matter about your circumstances that you're in. You
Yeah.
don't let those obstacles stand in your way.
Mm-hmm.
Your destiny is going to be your destiny.
Mm-hmm. I like that you said that, Connie. This is so rich. And you said your destiny will be your destiny.
Hmm.
Um, and I love this. Now, I want to make sure that we take some time. Believe it or not, we're halfway through the show
Hmm.
already. It goes by so fast. So I'm going to pull you backstage for just a
Okay.
moment so we can thank our sponsors. You go ahead and grab a drink if you decide that you want to grab some water or anything like that. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about like what your life has been, what it's like being an executive in the IT space. I definitely
Okay, we'll
want to
definitely
spend some
talk about
time
that.
talking
Okay.
about that. All right, guys. So you are on Women with Grit with Dr. Connie Peltier. I mean, wow, just so rich. I hope you all are taking notes and know that we'll still do the recap at the end. But just as it relates to understanding your lineage and being able to overcome difficult challenges, recognizing that you are enough, right, and the ability to continue to climb in spite of circumstance, and continue to do it successfully. Man, I tell you, you guys, I hope that you're being, enriched just as much as I am. But you know how we do again, feel free to leave your name, city, and state that you're joining in from, or even your country. We tend to get people who join in as well that are around the globe. And so we welcome you to Women with Grit, the Women with Grit, where we interview amazing and inspiring women around the world who are essentially taking their nations and their country by storm by creating generational impact. So we thank you all for joining in. We thank our sponsors at tableaction.org, Vision Strategy Management, as well, where we believe in empowering and in building businesses and teams who win, who succeed. Listen, we are always excited and looking to interview amazing guests, and we're rolling out, our season 5 and season 6 guests. We are in currently season 4. So if you know an amazing or inspiring woman that you feel should be up here and share her story, please feel free to share our information. Have them reach out to us on any one of our forums, and a member from our team will be sure to reach back out to them. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit deeper. And as you know, feel free to leave any questions that you have in the chat function so that we can get them over to Connie as well. We want to talk about IT and talk about what it's been like, what it has been like, what it's like being a woman in the IT space, and specifically working in the cyberspace, right? Cybersecurity, that has been such a booming topic, especially in these present years. So we'll go ahead and bring Connie back up. But again, feel free to leave any questions that you have in the chat function, and we will be sure to make sure that we get them over to her. So welcome back, Connie.
Thank you.
Thank you for an inspiring and an amazing first half of the show. I am feverishly writing over here just all of these wisdom, all of these pearls of wisdom that you have provided unto us, making the best out of what you have, being able to make a lot from a little. I mean, really, really phenomenal. So thank you so much for joining us. So Connie, I want to take a moment to talk about the IT space and just, what that journey what that journey was like for you and is like for you, right? Because you're still obviously operating in that space. So talk to us a little bit about your professional career and what led you to going into IT.
Mhm. Um, I guess I've been in IT aspects of it, probably for 30 plus years. I
Mm-hmm.
started with, working on projects where we were actually implementing software for the division that I was in. And I started picking those things up. And before I knew it, I was working in the IT world. But, things started changing with the cybersecurity world. And I actually had a conversation with one of the directors that I used to work with at Coca-Cola. And I've told him I wanted to make a career change. What, and this is probably 7, 8 years ago. I was like, well, what is my best option? He told me cybersecurity. I have done, vendor governance. I've done implementation, in IT, um, IT procurement. He's like, no, you need to go get certified in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And he said, you've got the degrees, but you need the certifications. So and he told me where to go and to do this. And, I looked at these certifications. I'm like, oh my God, I've got to do all this. But I took the challenge. I started off simple by doing some small courses, making sure that I clearly understand what cybersecurity was about. Started asking a lot of questions with directors, VPs, when I was in meetings negotiating contracts, with them, finding out, this particular contract, what the software did, what it could do, all of that, the ups and downs of that of those particular software programs, the hardware, the outsourcing that we were doing in India and Costa Rica, all of that information. I just started absorbing it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get all these certifications. And then they came and told me I've got to learn how to code. I knew how to code
Mm-hmm.
COBOL cozy, but that was long, long time ago when they told me
Okay.
Python and I had to do,
Python.
data analytics. I
Mm-hmm.
had to learn that. And Python, I'm like, oh my goodness. And Python actually is, the algorithms. And you've got to know calculus, you got to know algebra. And I
Yeah.
was the one in college that said D meant done.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
So I had to go reevaluate all of that, learn more about, algebra, calculus, in order for me to learn how to code.
Mm.
And my directors, my VP, my CISO, and a CIO. I was like, no, you keep learning, you keep learning, you keep learning, and they said we're going to pay for these certificates because cybersecurity. By the time you learn one thing, oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's, and you get used to knowing what's going on. Oh, it's time for something else,
Right.
and that's why. But I can say every last one of those that have encouraged me to get my certifications,
Uh-huh.
they were men.
Mm-hmm.
They were men. The IT world, I'll say 25% women.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and 75% men. Today, I walked into a meeting with my CIO and his direct reports. I'm looking at all these VPs.
Yeah.
They're all men.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a woman of color, the only woman that was in that room. And because I actually am a IT diversity ambassador, I will be in those rooms with them. And I'm looking like, okay, something's not right here. You've
Mm-hmm.
got 10 reports and only one of them is a woman, and she wasn't there today. And I'm like, where are we at? It's
Yeah.
not about the color, but
Mm-hmm.
where are the women at?
Mm-hmm.
We hit the ceiling at director level.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
where are we at? And that's something, I'm working on with my company, not necessarily for me, but the women that come behind me
Right.
is building that um, ladder so they can go beyond, where I am. I'm a threat
Mm-hmm.
intelligence lead, but I want them to be the CIO.
Right.
So how can I prepare the path for them, that to happen? And that's what, I'm doing. We need to hire a very diverse labor pool, bring in
Mm-hmm.
some qualified women candidates,
That's right.
um, who are diverse, who can get the job done, and who we can provide the right tools, give them right skills so they can be promotable and obtain being a VP or CIO. That is my concern now. I work with different groups.
Mm-hmm.
When I say outside of my job, where women in technology they meet, they get together at different aspects, and they talk about their goals, what inspires them, what does it need for a woman to go to the next level. Why are we where we are when a lot of times we're the ones holding down the fort?
Yeah. That's
And
good.
here's the thing that most people don't realize: when we apply for a job as a woman, we apply for it as if 90% of the job we can do.
Mm-hmm.
Men apply for it probably between 25 and 45% of the job, that they know they already can do. So they're taking that leap and
Right.
we're not.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to start applying for these jobs, even though our skill set is not there.
Mm-hmm.
Take the chance, have the interview, and say, okay, what am I going to need to get there? Find a mentor and say, okay, if I want to be the CIO, get with the CIO and tell me, a female CIO, and say, hey, can you mentor me and tell me what it's going to take for you to get
Mm-hmm.
there? And even me, I have a mentor, and my mentor, not only is he a chief counsel, he knows IT.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, he's helped guiding me, and his goal is to make sure that I'm promotable, that I have the skills and the assets that I need,
Mm-hmm.
for my next position.
That's right. Now let's stay there, Connie. Let's talk a little bit more about the importance of men when it comes to whether it be mentoring, inspiring
Hmm.
women. So the role that men play. So they're already in the space or in these roles. What position do you feel that they play when it comes to women and making sure that they are promotable?
Um, First of all, the man needs to feel, and they need to feel comfortable
Hmm.
with the women that they're bringing into the room.
Okay.
And it doesn't, mean that the women can be intimidating. They need to feel comfortable that I can take this woman to the next step, to be the VP, to be the CIO. Does she have the knowledge? Does she have the skill set?
Yeah.
where it can be adaptable, to grow. And they, within most men, when they, are bringing women into the room, within the first 10 minutes, they've already sized them up
Mm,
and have determined, oh, she's going to be promotable or she's not going to be promotable. And
mhm,
it's two things. It's in the language.
mhm,
And when I say language, it's what you speak verbally and
mhm,
your body language.
mhm.
And I was really surprised to hear CIOs and VPs talk about that when they do bring someone, a woman into the room that they're looking at to be promotable. Those are the two things they look at. Of course, she may have the qualifications on paper,
Yeah.
but they want to take the time and have that listening ear, and then to be very observant,
Mhm.
because if they're going to have you represent that company, regardless man or woman, you've got to make sure that you have the qualities that the company's looking for.
Mhm.
You don't want them to say, okay, we promoted this particular person. They don't have the qualities, they don't have the character.
Yeah.
And that can, then sometimes that can be a problem.
Mhm. How does your character speak for you?
Hmm.
And not only what comes out of your mouth, but how you hold yourself, your poise.
You present yourself when you're in the community, when you're at professional events, when you're presenting, when you're in um, a crowd where the C-suite
Hmm.
uh, from other companies. How are you carrying yourself?
Right.
Man or woman, they look at all of that. And I have seen many be demoted quickly after an event,
Hmm.
because
Interesting. Yeah.
they spoke to the wrong CIO the wrong way,
Hmm.
or there was a misrepresentation,
Hmm.
and it affected the company brand.
And when you're in corporate, that's definitely one of those things to be aware of. So, what do you feel are some of the core attributes that women need in order to truly be successful?
Always adapting, always learning.
Hmm.
Be observant of the audience that you're presenting to, and then know the path that you're trying to take and what it's going to take to get there. Don't assume just because of the previous job that you've done that it's going to be easy for you to get there. Because what I've learned working with CIOs, CISOs, VPs, presidents, SVPs, all of that, they're constantly learning.
Hmm.
You know, they're reading, they're looking at the latest and the greatest technology. Who's um, who's inventing this? Who's our competitor? Whose brand? And I mean, they're looking at all of that, and they want you to do the same.
Hmm.
You know, well, who are our five people that we can benchmark and figure out that are competitors? What are they doing that we're not doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing that they're not doing? I mean, they want to know all of that. They want to. It's basically you got to know that you know cybersecurity.
That's right.
And you're
Yeah.
always looking to see, okay, these vulnerabilities. You're reading these articles. Like when Zoom wasn't working a couple of days ago,
Hmm.
that shut down a lot of meetings. And there was at the same time there was a problem with Microsoft Teams. Okay,
Hmm.
what are these issues that are going on? Um, and you never know. You've got to have that elevator speech ready, because you
Yeah.
never know when you run into. Because a lot of times they'll question you if they're looking at you to be promoted. You got 30 seconds to give them an answer,
That's
and
right.
that's it. You can make or break it with that 30 seconds.
That's right.
Hmm.
So, Connie, and believe it or not, the time is almost up to a close already, and this has just been so rich. What are there any nuggets that you want to leave with our audience? And then also, can you share ways that they can connect and engage with you as well?
Yes, I definitely can do that. Um, I am on LinkedIn as you can find me as under Connie Peltier on LinkedIn. Um, Facebook, of course, Connie Jones Peltier. Um, Instagram is Conquilla_Elise. And I don't give my real name out, but Connie was so popular on Instagram, I couldn't use it. But Conquilla is my legal name, but I prefer Connie. Okay, but the nuggets that I'll leave with you is to all continue to learn, and it doesn't necessarily mean certifications.
Hmm.
Read, observe, find a. I don't, regardless of your age, find a mentor. Find someone who's willing to invest in you. If you're trying to grow professionally, if you're trying to grow personally, and then I will say also find that person that needs a mentor because the self doubt, everything that these kids are going through now, especially with the pandemic, has brought on so much with mental illness and trying to find people who really believe in them. And if you can't mentor, volunteer at the schools so the
Hmm.
kids can see a face of somebody that cares.
Love that.
Do that, or get involved in your community. It doesn't have to be political, but get involved when Juneteenth comes around, when all these, Black History Month comes around. Find out what's going on in your community and volunteer for those because we need to know our history. If we don't know our history, then we're not going to know uh, where we're going. Because if we don't know the history, we're going to keep repeating it.
Yeah, this repeats itself.
Hmm.
That's right. Connie, this has been such an amazing time with such rich conversation. And you all know how I love to do, which is to do a recap of the time that we shared together. I mean, so many things. And I'm sure you guys have been over there writing feverishly, but here are some of the nuggets and things that I captured from our time. One, don't let your circumstances determine your outcome. Recognize that where you came from and where you're going, it's important to know the history, but also to recognize that you can define the outcome that you want to have for your life. Apply everything that you learn to your life. So as you think about your journey and as you're coming across new things or new ideas, always ask yourself, how do I apply this and how is it relevant to me now? Be willing to listen and also be coachable. Be willing to receive feedback, be willing to actually act on it so that it can continue to enrich your life. Where you are right now should not determine your destiny. So don't. If you find that where you are is not somewhere that you choose to be, then guess what? You have the choice at any moment to change that. Recognize that in this season, guys, find a doctor who really cares for you. Remember, Connie shared her story about being diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. And part of what she shared was the aspect of carrying her cell phone close to her chest. So if you're doing that, put it in your bag, identify that, but also make sure that you are taking care of your health and taking the precautions that you need. She said that 70% of women get diagnosed later in their later stages with that happen to be women of color. So make sure that you get checked. Have someone who believes in you enough that they will invest in you, even if it's a stranger or someone that you may not know. So being able to have someone that sees the value, sees the dream, sees you even sometimes when you can't see yourself, enough to invest in you and give you the opportunities to be the person that raises their hand when they're in the room. So when they're in the room, to give you the space that you need. Believe in your own dream. Remember, she talked about the ability to move beyond self doubt or even some of the self limiting beliefs that we have, to recognize that you are absolutely worth the pursuit of your dream. Whatever you start, know that you can finish it. And it's never too late to go back to school. It's never too late to finish what you start. If you set it in motion, continue until you have brought it to a full completion. It is never too late to finish what you have started. Don't let anything stand in the way of your open door, right? Don't let anything get in the way of what's already for you. Stop digging the holes for yourself, but be willing to stand firm on your own two legs. Be able to make a lot from a little, and recognize that principle of multiplication. Sometimes, great things come in small packages. Think about the seed that becomes an apple tree, for example. Know your foundation so you can apply the lessons learned from the former and not duplicate them, or repeat history. Your destiny is your destiny, so make your way through. Remember, especially as we talk about corporate leaders and we talk about how women can continue to excel in corporate America, to give women the opportunity to enable them, but then also equip them with the tools, resources, as well as the trainings that they need in order to succeed as executives. Give them a path forward. Also, take a chance, take the interview, step out on faith. Even if you don't have everything, ask yourself what's needed to fill the gap and then go after it. Find a mentor that is willing to take you under the wing, that is willing to give you and show you the ropes, so that if it's a position that you desire, require, that they'll be willing to help you walk into that. One of the things that Connie said is that men should be comfortable with the way that they take on women and being able to help them get to that next step. But also for women to recognize that sometimes it is in your language, it is in what you say, and also how you are conveying yourselves in the room. So body language is also important. And then always be adapting. Connie said to always be adapting, always be learning, right? You can never get to a space where you stop learning, especially even as executives. Know the path that you want to take and how to get there. And also, don't be shy about asking for help and raising your hand. Read constantly and recognize that it is so important, once you've done all that, to invest in others, invest in our youth. Find a child or someone that you can now mentor. And if you can't find anyone, to volunteer at the schools. You are needed, and so are your gifts, talents, and abilities. Thank you, Connie. This has been such an amazing time. We're so excited that you took a moment to grace our stage and share all of your pearls of wisdom. We're so, so, so thankful for having you on Women with Grit this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. I've truly enjoyed it.
It has been a sincere, sincere pleasure. So, you all, wow. If you have not shared this episode, make sure that you go ahead and do that. Recognize, search. I challenge you to find someone that needs to hear the information that Dr. Peltier has shared tonight, and share this episode. Don't just sit on it and soak in it and stew in it, right? If it's something good, you want to share it, right? In the same way that we would share our food and share our experiences. So be sure to do that. And then we want to thank you again for joining us on Women with Grit, the show where we interview amazing and inspiring women around the world who are doing phenomenal things. We look forward to seeing you next week. And until then, have an amazing time. Thank you.